recording already.
I have been recording. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I just thought it'd be nice for us to do another cold open with whilst we open a cold one.
Oh, I fizzed everywhere. Oh, no. No, not your playmat. I'm sorry, your really nice playmat. I've scooped it.
Scooping, yeah, liquid. Yes, scooping liquid works so well. It's
I'm gonna blame you for that.
Stop touching it. Leave it alone.
I'm getting rid of the top sort. That can't be the worst thing that's been spilt on it.
Nothing's been spilt on it.
I'm really sorry.
It's fine. I shouldn't have left my hollow foil playmat.
Let's remove it. Let's get it out from under me.
Yeah, fair.
It's fine. It's super fine. I'm really sorry.
It's ruined now. Anyway.
It's not ruined. No, don't make me do that. I'll buy you a new one.
No, you won't. It's impossible to get hold of.
I'll try my hardest.
It's fine. I'm joking.
Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things magic flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
So that's going to be insufferable for people that weren't ready for it.
I'm keeping in.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel.
This is the first episode of 2024. We're getting it in right under the gun of January.
Woo, closer to death. Yay!
And we're back with another story review. We've got to stop only doing episodes when they do stories and like set reviews.
Well, the way I look at it, right, is if we only manage to get like an episode a month, that's on the cycle of you get one that's story, you get one that's the set, and then you get one that's just random ancillary bullshit that we want to talk about. And then before we know it, we're into another set where we've got to do one story, one flavour picks, and then one random ancillary.
Is that not a good indication of how much story we're getting? The fact that every set now has some decent story to it that we have to talk about.
I think the base level for a Magic the Gathering set is to have some story that we can talk about.
Yeah, but the base level wasn't met all the time. Like, it's only like in modern times where that's happened.
Yeah, Beyond Theros was
well, yeah, exactly. Like, do you remember the days where it was like we were about a year into this, we were doing COVID times, so we were doing like an episode a week, and there was a real feeling that people, like pillars of the MTG community and the Vorthos community, were going, it's great that there are more Vorthos, it's a dying part of the game.
Yeah, I've recently started re-listening to like random episodes throughout our catalogue. And every now and again we'll have episodes where we're like, so hype, and then we'll have other episodes where we're like, well, big boo. And it's just kind of funny to see that there is a massive up and down. I think it's like a pendulum. Like because we had a negative swing. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but we did have a not too distant past negative swing, and we've been kind of in this nice positive swing for a while, because I think they must have had a lot of pushback.
It was Dominaria United. We hated Dominaria United. We thought it was bollocks.
Yeah, and I think that was not far behind Theros Beyond Death as well. So there was a couple of bits altogether that were like, oh, I didn't mind United, because that was the two stories that was one in the past, one in present, right? We liked the past, but we didn't like the present. I can't remember what my opinions about things are.
No, Dominaria United was just straight up, it's spies on Dominaria. It was Brothers War was
the flashback.
Yeah. That was sick.
Yeah, because the United one was the one where they had the Among Us episode, right, when they were stuck in the tower in.
The one I liked and you didn't.
I didn't. It's not that I didn't like it. It's that it was a bit too. I like the premise of it. It's like a Doctor Who episode, right? If some Doctor Who episodes have an amazing,
I don't like it now.
It's fine. I get it. I know. I understand. But some Doctor Who episodes have a great premise, but it doesn't deliver. And there are some ones that have a really wonky premise, but it delivers. And I feel like that was a cool premise, but for me, it didn't deliver because I didn't get behind. Was it Sten, whatever his name was?
Yeah.
I didn't get behind him, and it was kind of, it felt too, if you just stopped for a moment and had a conversation, none of this would happen.
Yeah.
And it felt very forced, but at the same time, I like the idea of there were these two weird squiggly wiggly things running through all the vents, and everyone's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's a bottle episode. They do it in loads of like sci-fi.
It was quite cool. I did like it. It was good.
I saw like a little sneak peek for the new Doctor Who series with the new actor playing it.
Oh really?
It was the thing with the goblins and the baby.
I haven't. Me and the golf are actually going through all of the new Who, and we're now we've done 2 seasons of Capaldi, we're in this last season of Capaldi.
Sure.
Clara Oswald is dead. She's gone. Fuck that impossible girl.
And then
off.
fucking David Tennant comes back, but as a different
Which
Doctor.
one? Which time?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. They can't help themselves. But
like,
it's masturbatory.
Well, no spoilers about what happens in this teaser trailer, but suffice to say, it made me shrivel up and die.
Oh, really?
I fucking hated it.
Oh,
I hated it so much. Even in the context of, like, I'm not really big for Doctor Who fan.
Goblins and babies doesn't give me great promise.
But
we are trying to keep an open mind, because, I mean, the thing is, Capaldi got a massive amount of pushback and we really liked him, and I imagine Jodie got a huge amount of pushback, but I know her first season was, like, generally kind of well received.
It's nothing to do with him.
It's just everything else around it.
It's the actual, like...
That's the concern.
What they're doing. I was like, oh, this is shit.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that have a bunch of characters and story and things that might be shit, no, I'm joking. This story's actually very, very good.
This is rad! Sorry.
Very good.
We're doing a story episode for Murders at Karlov Manor.
Yeah.
That's one. So, Murders at Karlov Manor. How many times do we have to say the set name before someone fucks up? We've got to like ping pong it back and forth. We've got to get to 100.
Right, that's right though, Karlov. Now I'm at MKM. Now it's fine because now my brain just goes murders and just like just get the k out first. And you're fine. Yeah, exactly.
We're doing our story episodes. Shauna Maguire is back.
Whoop. Full 10 episodes. Hype.
She's fucking great. And you know what? I was reading it thinking, this writing is fucking insane. And then I looked back at like all the other stories that she's done. She did the... oh my god, I pulled it up. She did Tangles, which obviously we love Tangles.
Yeah.
She did the entire set of... oh my god, what was it? Assault on New Phyrexia episodes, which are awesome.
Yeah, I did actually really enjoy it.
Yeah. A Dance of Undeath, which was the... what's his name? Wilhelt? Who's the zombie commander with big axe? Muscle Man. Gaston.
What?
You know!
The muscle man with
He's in love with Gisa and wants to impress her. He came in a precon.
Oh, yeah, it is Wilhelt.
Yeah. I'm not mad. I don't know. It's in Australia. It's some sort of Germanic name. I don't fucking know. Easy. Shauna Maguire is fucking rad. I'm surprised they don't I was really surprised that they'd only done those. I'm sure they've done more.
Their name is much more synonymous in the story, but I guess it's in my brain space. But it might just be there was a lot of recent. And again, Tangled was one of our favourite stories that we've read in a long, long time. So
yeah, full 10 episodes. Yeah. I was surprised that we were going to get 10 episodes for this.
I don't think that even Wizards could get away with skimping out on budget to make a murder mystery story less than 10 stories. Notice there are no side stories.
Which I'm fine with on this one.
But this is where their equity went. They went, right, instead of doing 5 main and 5 side, you're going to get 10 stories, but it's all just one story.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that for this one.
No.
There's nothing else going on the plane that we need to worry about.
The whole point is this is a very focused story on Ravnica, to the point of where a lot of the other guildmasters, every guildmaster kind of gets into it at a certain point, apart from the 2 guilds that aren't really present. But Niv doesn't really show up at all. And one thing I saw in a nice thread was that it's below him. It's just a bunch of little murders while he's trying to actually protect the plane and all this other shit that might be going on.
Yeah.
Like a few murders happening. There's murders happening across Ravnica all the fucking time.
Every second of every day.
All the time. Yeah. So it's not that, some more high profile, maybe there's a bit of a mystery to it. Enough that the entire plane decides to put on a fedora. But, that's fine. That's beyond the point.
Yeah.
I don't think you need the side story because this feels like a Ravnican side story.
Yes.
It is a focus of the plane and a focus of a lot of the main players.
Yeah.
But it's not what's going on to the plane. It's just what's happening within a very specific area.
You're really right. This feels like when we did the storybook episode of that Taser Karlov and oh my god, what's his name? Who's the Boros Legionnaire guy?
Tajik,
that's it. Tajik of the Legion. When we had their buddy cop thing of her trying to sneak into the Obzedat to try and murk Karlov. This feels like an extended one of those where it's just the guild masters going around doing guildy shit.
It's lots of these 2 people together having cool interactions while they go on their own little journey, and you've got a couple of those going on in synchronicity, and then eventually obviously everything links back up together.
And we learn this is like technically now this is the 4th time we've been back to Ravnica for like a main set. We learn so much about Ravnica that doesn't feel tacked on, but actually feels like part of the world.
Yeah, it's not world building because the world is built, but it's definitely depth. There's so many people that said once we got to the episode where they went and read the Guild Pact, it's like, if they made a real world Guild Pact and just filled it with boring, shitty, like Ravnican lore, people would buy the shit out of it.
We would.
Because all it does is it gives you information.
Yeah.
It gives you depth and information within a plane that already has a lot going on, but it's really hard sometimes to get into the nitty-gritty for how it's hard to see the wood for the trees on a plane so large and so busy. And we got to just go focus, like real pinpoint focus. Let's do a couple of character analyses, and I think it delivers really well. There are 2 things that this would add to balance. So it had to balance being a magic story that has to be accessible to the average new player, but then also deliver as a murder mystery and play to all the tropes that a murder mystery story naturally would. Your red herrings, your misleads, your all the setup and everything. And I think, and it's very difficult sometimes in magic fiction to not feel super twee, it's trying to balance 2 things, and Shonen does a great job of balancing a magic story with a murder mystery that actually has believable intrigue, you know, and it has like very good twists, and it even has like obvious like misleads that you'll find to kind of go, well, obviously you're going to say that, but to the average person who might not know Ravnican lore or Ravnican characters very well, they'll be able to go on at a pace the same way someone who knows about this story and has read every Ravnican story that's out there. They'll have a similar trajectory and a similar process as they're reading them.
Absolutely. Right, I'm gonna do a very loose story breakdown, because actually, whereas there's a lot going on in this, and because it's a murder mystery, the whole nature of it is there's lots of twists and turns and stuff. So I don't think it really.
What, some people die? It was a tree.
We don't really need to like. I'm not going to go for beat the story. So here's just the broad setup, and then we'll get into what's going on. So we are post Phyrexian invasion. Ravnica, like most of the planes of the multiverse, is in rebuild mode, and it actually seems the overall kind of consensus is the guilds are not quite as fractured as they were before, because they've pulled together against the Phyrexian threat. At this moment in time, there are 3 guilds that are kind of being shunned by the rest of them. The Dimir and the Golgari are pretty much nowhere to be seen. The Golgari have hidden themselves away in the Underdark. Underdark? That's D&D. What am I talking about? The Undercity. As if that's wildly different.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got Drow. And the Dimir are presumed disbanded because Lazav is kind of hinting at, is presumed dead. Spoiler alerts, he's got fucking cards in this set, so he's not dead.
They couldn't help themselves.
They really couldn't. And he's a 2-drop as well, again. Amazing. And the Rakdos, whilst not being sort of hidden away like those other 2 guilds, is definitely sort of falling out of favour with the rest. Well,
he's asleep again, right?
Rakdos the demon is asleep, and his guild are slightly... I guess people are a little bit sick of chaos at this point and destruction.
You don't want there to be a bunch of random wanton death and destruction just after there was a bunch of wanton death and destruction.
Yeah, so they've slightly fallen out of favour with the kind of wider audience, especially the Boros and the Azorius, who are at this point really trying to re-solidify themselves as the law and the police. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the Azorius and the Boros, because like I think many Magic players, new and old, their roles are still less defined in my mind, but I'll talk about that a little bit later.
I think they do have a moment where they try and specify.
They literally have a couple of lines where they do, but up until that point I was like, I don't get who's in charge here. But anyway, we'll get to that. The setup of the initial story, the first of the 10, is that Taser Karlov is throwing a soiree at her manor, Karlov Manor, for the sake of clarity, for the most of the guild leaders and or heads of the guilds and other sort of high profile people in Ravnica, including, for example, Krenko. Although he was sent an invite.
Did he get a legitimate invite or not? Is he bullshitting?
Well, I read it as he did get a legitimate invite from Taser because they are associates in business, but she didn't expect him to take it up because he owes the guild. So he's like, I sent you an invite.
It's a bit of a piss,
you come here to eat my food. I didn't necessarily think you were going to turn. Anyway, so there's lots of like high-profile people at her soiree, at her private manor. During this soiree, she is basically trying to throw a party to prove that the Orzhov was one of the leading lights during the War of the Phyrexians, because not only was Kaya one of the planeswalkers that the multiverse now knows was trying to stop the threat on New Phyrexia, however, the overall consensus is that planeswalkers are not good news because they didn't protect their own planes, quote unquote.
I guess after War of the Spark, seeing all of these planeswalkers be drawn to the plane, a threat of their own life and defending, when it came to those planeswalkers coming to defend Ravnica, oopsie poo-poo, no one really showed up.
No one really showed up. So Ravnica considers Kaya to be one of their own, even though some of them maybe more informed understand that she's a planeswalker, probably not from Ravnica. They see her as a former guild leader, as being a Ravnican planeswalker who wasn't there during what they perceive as the pivotal moment of the war. Obviously, we know as readers, she was off on New Phyrexia.
She was in the Nexus.
Well, she was in the Nexus, yeah. Taser is also trying to show off her affiliation for the Agency of Magological Investigations.
Magicological
investigations. The agency, as it's known from then on in the story.
Rami.
The agency is a guildless detective bureau. So where the Azorius and the Boros, and sometimes the Selesnya, because I did a little bit of digging back into the lore of the guilds. The Selesnya are also seen as being a law-bringing guild, but they're just a little bit more insular into their own matters.
Yeah, I mean, most of the knights that are there, because you have soldiers, I guess, from the Boros Legion, advisors from the Azorius, and a lot of the knights, like centaurs and stuff like that, were Selesnya.
Yes, the Selesnya are obviously, I mean, as at the tying back, and we'll kind of, the theming of this kind of follows on from Ravnica Allegiance and Ravnica, Guilds of Ravnica. I think people forgot until that set that Selesnya has its own army because they are slightly culty and like protecting their own shit.
They're like the organised Gruul.
Yeah, exactly. The agency is headed up by a fucking Archon, sick, called Ezino. Ezrim. Why did I write Zeno?
Because autocorrect is shit.
Called Ezrim. Names are horrible.
I like that, Ezio.
Well, I keep in my head. I was like, that's not Ezio Auditore, is it? Called Ezrim. And basically, they're a guildless detective agency. During this party, Zagana, who, whilst not being the guild master, because Vannifar is also there, but she is obviously she's a speaker in the Combine, is murdered.
Dun, dun,
dun, dun. No one knows who did it. It was in a locked room. The only clues that they have going on is that she had a pile of coats around her and a flower in her hand. However, when Detective Alquist Proft, who's such a cool name, handsome. He's so handsome. He's so hot.
Do you know who he reminds me of in the pictures? He reminds me of the fucking guy from Hunger Games with his stupid facial hair and the swirly bits.
Oh, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? That's the impression.
He's hotter than that. Do you know what he reminds me of? Like sort of early 90s Prince is what he reminds me of.
Oh, true, yeah. But he's got those blue striking eyes that come through his dark features. Oh.
The other character that really reminds me of Prince is Atrata the Silencer, who is also there at the party.
Ship that couple.
Well, yeah, quite. Atrata is there in the guise of a Selesnya guest, because why would a Dimir agent come dressed in Dimir colours?
But doesn't have the insignia on them, which is very important, because wearing their colours is considered, even if you're not in the Spain, kind of okay, or in the guild, kind of okay.
There are only so many colours.
But if you wear the symbol, that's a big no-no.
You're a dumbass. Yeah. So she gets caught out in that respect. Proft and Planeswalker Kai, who is there, give chase, as well as... Kellen's back.
What?
He's in every set.
Kellen's in this set? That's crazy.
What a wild twist.
I wonder if he'll be in the next one.
Kellen is working for the agency, because I guess there's some little time jumps going on here.
That's one thing that really pisses me off. We do not know how much time it's been since he was... We don't know how much time it was between... Eldraine and Ixalan, and we don't know how much time it's been since Ixalan and now.
I think it's a few months, because also on the cards he's kind of aged up a little bit every single time.
Yeah.
So Kellen is part of the agency. He thought that he was on Ravnica because he thinks that the agency, being an information gathering organisation, might have had some information for his dad Oakham. So he's still on that kind of thing. But he's, in this story, for all intents and purposes, he's fully invested in the agency. He's not kind of doing his own thing. He is a detective of the agency. I do like the fact that in every plane we go to, he's immediately super invested in whatever faction he's with. It doesn't feel like he's out of place, because immediately he's like, yeah, cool, I'll put on my detective hat today. Yeah. Oh, sure, I'm going to put on my warrior hat.
I mean, what else would you do? Do you go in and start being like, I don't like this, I'm going to... Because you could just go, you could leave, right, at any point. So I feel like if you don't throw yourself in... I mean, Kellen can't help it anyway. It's just his character. He throws himself full in.
They catch Atrata. Atrata gets handed over to the Azorius, and the Azorius, the Boros, and the agency basically work as a sort of triple, unit threat to try and uncover who murdered Zagana. So that's the kind of setup of the initial story. After that, a bunch of shit happens, obviously, and what we end up with a breakdown is that Proft breaks Atrata out of Azorius prison because he realises that she wasn't in her own faculties when she killed Zagana. It's revealed that she did kill Zagana, but she doesn't remember doing it, and not in the cool Dimir way, in the kind of, oh shit, there's something else going on kind of way. Now, on Ravnica, that's not a crime if you're mind-controlled, so Proft breaks her out of Azorius prison, safe in the knowledge that he'll probably be able to get off scot-free.
For what it's worth, Alquist Proft used to be part of the Azorius Guild as well, so he's not just I mean, the fact he's unaffiliated is one thing, but the fact he's going against his former guild is even further kind of show of his gumption.
Absolutely. So we end up with two pods trying to solve the mystery of who killed Zagana. We have Atrata and Proft kind of off as a twosome, and then we have Kellen and Kaya off as a twosome.
With a little bit of Ghosty Boy.
Oh, Agris Kos! Yeah. Of course, how could I forget?
Well, because he comes and then he doesn't do anything, and then he gets trapped in a random bubble.
the Boros wanting to keep some sort of grip on this situation because Aurelia is losing her nut. She understands that she doesn't have the faculty to handle this, but she hates the idea that a guildless faction is taking the lead. She sends Agris Kos.
She's also really struggling to keep her cool.
Yes. She's always calling for war every 5 seconds.
Losing her shit every moment.
Agris Kos is obviously was the main character during a lot of the Guild Pact novels, and his battle against Zadek, the old Dimir.
He's the reason the Guild Pact broke in the first place, because he publicly outed the Dimir, which was supposed to always be, by definition, a secret guild, which then caused the break, which then caused the implicit maze needed to be run to form the Guild Pact, which then to Jace getting it, and then Niv getting it, and now here we are.
Yeah. Throughout the story, there are several more murders of high-profile characters. Taser Karlov bites the dust.
It's hard to feel bad for an Orzhov person getting killed.
How dare you? Orzhov is definitely my guild.
But as in, it's hard to feel bad for them when they're literally just going to come straight back and carry on being the guild leader.
So as throughout the stories, it would be easy if Taser comes back as a ghost and says, "Hey, this is the person that killed me," but her
it doesn't. Yeah,
she's kind of off doing other things. When Taser gets killed, Kaya finds a note in her hand that has Phyrexian script. That was a good twist. I really didn't know where they were going to go with that.
Yeah, I didn't know where they were going to
go
with
that. The Phyrexian script in Taser's handwriting. So there's this idea that Taser Karlov might have been
She has Phyrexian knowledge. She knows how to communicate in Phyrexian.
Yes. Kylox is a scientist who gets accidentally killed when he's a contact of Proft, and then they get attacked by some assailants, and Kylox gets killed in a scuffle with Krenko's men.
Well, to skip a point, we did go back to Atratta's. They went back to Atratta's apartment, because that was the last place she remembered, and there was this pollen, like whitish yellow pollen-y kind of thing that they found, this dust, that is very clearly the thing that caused her to lose her memory and go on the murderous spree. And then Rao needs to find someone who's completely unaffiliated to any of the guilds to be able to analyse it. And the best person he comes to is Kylox.
Yes. So we have these members of all these different guilds and all these high members of society, because the assailants look like they're going after Krenko, not Kylox. So what's Krenko got to do with all this? A lot of these high-profile people get killed. The Selesnya are involved. They go to Trostani to try and figure out something in the Guild Pact that might be able to help them.
Well, they're led on a wild goose chase, eventually we find out, by Judith, because they go to the Rakdos to speak to her because she might know something, and then she goes, well, I don't know anything per se, but maybe the Guild Pact might have some information in there that might tell you what be going on.
Yes. A lot of these mysteries all basically culminate in one big showdown where Proft brings everyone together, like Pyro, bringing everyone into
the whole, hey, I know who's done this.
And essentially what has been going on is that different assailants throughout Ravnica have all been mind controlled by this yellow pollen, which no one knows where this pollen's come from. All these different assailants are trying to off high members of different guilds, or in fact even non-guilds, for whatever reason we don't quite know. The mystery uncovers itself when we find out that Trostani, or rather one of the three sisters that make up Trostani, has orchestrated this. The roots of Mat Selesnya and Vitu-Ghazi Tree have been spreading all throughout Ravnica, because those roots go basically across the whole planet.
It's literally the world soul.
The pollen is coming out of flowers grown by those roots, spraying people in the face and getting them to kill targets that this one sister, this one dryad of Trostani, feels betrayed Ravnica during the Phyrexian War. So, for example, she thinks that Krenko was selling contraband during the war at a marked up price. Taser, she feels, was talking to the Phyrexians and was about to side with them, and that all these different little pods, Zagana was using Phyrexian oil as like an experimentation thing, and basically wanted to kill all these people as revenge for taking the planet hostage. Throughout all of this as well, there's distractions of who's been doing it and who's not. The Gruul are implicated because one of their gods, the mole god, Anzarg, starts smashing up the plane.
Well, he's been locked in a prison. So they've taken a literal god of the Gruul and put him in the evidence room in the centre of the agency. As if that's not going to not going to go wrong.
The Rakdos are implicated because Massacre Girl was one of the assassins who was
Massacre Girl was going to attack Aurelia, failed, but took down a bunch of her soldiers, which was then what caused Aurelia to give Alquist and Atratta a day, 24 hours to solve it. So they had time to try and figure out while all of these little incidents are happening, and then Aurelia gets attacked and puts a very definite 24-hour kind of timestamp on it, of where if this doesn't get solved in the next 24 hours, all shit will break loose.
The Dimir are implicated through Atratta being the one to be pollinated, but then it didn't make sense because her assassination was so sloppy and something that she wouldn't be that sloppy. And also, the Dimir, whilst they are known as being assassins, only go after high targets and not random killings. So all these different little plot points. The Golgari do pop up. We do have a Zoni pops up as one of
spiders. There are spiders in a bunch of the earlier episodes, and it's very clearly stated and noted as well that there is a spider here, and then you couldn't help being distracted because you saw a spider in this point, and then she basically turned around and go, I was just kind of keeping eyes on you.
Yeah.
And what's a really cool mislead is her artwork, which I know we don't normally talk about actual cards within the story implication, but her artwork is with the way her spider legs form on the back behind her looks like a Dimir. signet, essentially. Looks like they're insignia, and it's kind of like, were the Dimir and the Golgari both working in cahoots together? There was also, in the guild pack, when Judas sent them to go and read it, what they read was that Rakdos in his slumber can cause random murderous intent within citizens, so maybe when he needs to get off-plane, which I guess is where we eventually might find out why he goes to Bastards of Thunder Junction, because he finally got ousted from it, who knows, but Judith was clearly trying to vie for some power. Like, there's a lot of different individual intentions going along, as well as the main overarching theme that allowed it to feel like this woven thread of duplicity, and no one really... It was very hard to keep up on terms of what was happening. Like, randomly Kellen...
But no, as in, like, the narrative was clear, but you never felt like you knew what the mystery was going to happen.
You weren't sure of what direction it was going in. Like Helen and Kaya get attacked at one point by a bunch of... it looks like, I guess, in the
artwork,
image,
it looks like Selesnya.
It's Selesnya, but it's also a Simic insignia, but then they find a tuft of white fur, having just met Tolsmir and Voya, so clearly they were like, there were so many little breadcrumbs that were placed up, but it could be them, but it could be them. I mean, there were some people that it just clearly wasn't going to be, I don't think it is ever under any threat of it being them, for example. But at every point, it was very difficult to tell who was, could it have been Aurelia trying to make war happen? Because she
clearly wants it to blow up.
And she was the only attack that didn't actually work.
Yes.
Fair enough, Krenko was the target, but... Kylox got killed. But Krenko was the target, you know? So that's the only one that otherwise actually failed. So it was very difficult to really place where the intention of the story was going.
I do like as well that this idea that, each of these characters in Ravnica had... seemingly, who had been eavesdropped by Trostani through Vitu-Ghazi's roots with all these horrific intentions. They didn't actually assassinate their characters in the end, because we find out that even the other two Trostani sisters understand. They go, we can... it's like hearing a muffled idea. You can hear the sense of something going on, but, that's just because we feel everything. We don't necessarily... see everything.
Yeah, they don't have the knowledge, they have the insinuation.
Yeah. So Taser wasn't working with the Phyrexians to try and form an alliance with them. She learned the Phyrexian language through half Phyrexianized dead people so that she could infiltrate the Phyrexians and start a dialogue with them to overthrow them.
And then find out what was going to happen. I mean, again, she's probably instrumental in all of the defense of the plane because she knew the information ahead of time.
Zagana wasn't using the Phyrexian oil to try and make the Simic Combine better or harder. In fact, she was the more pacifist of the two leaders of the Vannevar was the warmonger.
She's the
aggressor.
And
even Vannevar said, Lone Zagana was using it as a way to try and find a cure. To find a cure, you have to experiment. That's just the way of things. And Krenko, whilst he did mark up, his is the least questionable, but in terms of, he was obviously being a dickhead, but even though he was doing markups on a lot of the contraband that he was getting back from enemy lines, he pointed out that the only troops that could get behind Phyrexian lines to get this contraband back were his goblin mob.
And he lost a lot of them.
And he lost them.
And those supplies probably would have been lost in the grand scheme of things anyway, but obviously he's profiteering off of tragedy, which to the Selesnians, that's a big no-no.
Exactly. So, yes, this one Trostani sister took all of that pain amongst themselves, kept hidden from the other two sisters.
Oba, by the way, out of the three of them, because she's the Dryad of Life, Sez was the Dryad of Order, and Sim is the Dryad of Harmony. If you think about it, Harmony's not going to create going to create chaos. Order's not going to create chaos. But Oba, the Dryad of Life, when you've had your entire plane penetrated by the World Tree and kind of trying to taken over, and you've got all of these individual guild masters having their own agendas, she's going to be furious because they're not looking to protect life on Ravnica, they're looking to protect their own agendas.
Exactly. The story concludes, or at least concludes in this one, with that Trostani sister, all of Trostani basically hiding away, making Amara Tandris, because unfortunately Tolsmir gets fucking killed in the battle which ensues. What? He's fucking off. He's the one where I'm like, he was a good character, you didn't have to fucking kill him.
I like the idea that it kind of does show the fanaticism of the Selesnya, of where even at the last, even if he knew, he was willing to, because he was even, I think he even said that he had the Mossy thing, because we haven't said it.
Oh, yeah.
The assailants that tried to attack Kellen and Kaya, the ones who had the tuft of white fur on them, as they tried to get interrogated, to do that kind of that spy thing of where they crunch on a cyanide pill, and they basically they disintegrate into moss, which causes Kellen to have a very revulsive reaction to it, which I think is hilarious. But even he said he had one of these mossy things that he was willing to also die for the cause as well.
Yeah.
And the only reason why Trostani didn't get speared by this Gruul centaur is because he threw himself in front of the spear to do so.
Yeah. So Amara Tandris is now the acting guild leader of the Selesnya. The Selesnya are not going to get sort of taken down because of weird archaic Ravnican law. It's kind of a way to keep the status quo.
Because 2/3 of Trostani is innocent, you can't convict the third, and you can't snap the twig off.
Yeah,
you can't break the branch.
The Golgari and the Dimir are still sort of under wraps. The rest of the guilds all seem to be working a little bit more harmoniously, but are starting to evolve back into their old ways. The one guild which is now a bit more interesting is the Rakdos.
Yes.
So throughout the story, Judith is presented as this femme fatale figure of being absolutely, she is the killer. She fucking hates everyone. She takes the piss out of everyone. She was the only Rakdos member at the
most self-serving
party.
as well.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to give a shit. And also, from like a dramatic irony point of view, we see that she traps Agrus Kos in like a little soul cairn when he goes to investigate the Rakdos, and she is trying to overthrow Rakdos as the leader of the cult. Rakdos is slumbering in his pit, and basically she is trying to create an excuse for the Azorius and the Boros to make Rakdos slumber forever, so forcibly keep him down there, so that she can ascend the throne in the Rakdos cult.
I would imagine that the way that plays out is that she pins the thing that happened to Agrus on the demon, and then that causes them to go, look, there's a big old omen path over there.
Why don't you just fuck off?
Do you mind fucking off, please? And because obviously Judas takes control of the guild whilst he's slumbering anyway, it's not out of the question for her to then take over fully.
However, at the end of the story, the last we see of Judith is that she confronts Massacre Girl, or Massacre Girl confronts her, and Massacre Girl says a line something like, Rakdos doesn't like it when the children fight. So Rakdos might be onto Judith and has sent Massacre Girl to try and sort of fucking stop Judith. Now, Judith ain't dead. But, so we'll see what happens. So I know that's that is very sort of weavy in and out of all the different stories. But that's kind of how it read.
It's literally how it read. Like, at no point, again, you had two different POVs. You had the Kaya-led POV, and then you had the Elquist POV. And again, the two worked in and out of different guilds at various points. I mean, they only ever really crossed paths right at the end. And again, we bounced between absolutely everywhere. I don't think there was a single guild that didn't have at least a bit of spotlight.
No, yeah,
which was quite nice.
I thought it was a really good way to do in one story arc 10 different guilds following a coherent narrative. Because when the Nikki Drayden story is something that we have gushed and gushed about again and again and again. They were 10. The reason they were good is because they were 10 individual spotlights. They were still interacting with the guilds, but it was following a Selesnya.
It was almost like immersing yourself in that guild as if the other guilds didn't exist.
Yeah, or like they were just bit players in your story.
Yeah, and they didn't necessarily. There was no crossover.
But that's a really good way of doing it because everyone got their spotlight, everyone got their time. In this one, Sean Maguire seems to have pulled off doing 10 episodes of this very, as you say, down to the ground, narrow story. And yeah, all right, not all, but most of the characters are the bigwigs of each guild. It's surprising how all of the guild masters are so accessible. Like, fucking Agrus just walks into Rix Maddie and sort of sees a sleeping Rakdos, and you're like, okay. Yeah. I know he's a ghost, but also... but, like, they still give each of the guilds, even the fucking Dimir and Golgari, who are meant to be non-existent, have their own... Like, Azoni's there.
Azoni's very important. And again, each of them have... Because you have to think about, there are two aspects of the story weight. Is the weight that you actually have when you read it on the paper, read it on paper, or your screen, or whatever you read it on. Like, the actual, weight of the characters. And then what your presumed, guilt, or your presumed what's it called, culpability, exactly. So you build up in your head this importance of, even that, because they mentioned very early on that both the Rakdos and the Dimir aren't really present, you keep that in your mind the entire story about how they are probably looming or lurking or hiding. You don't even need to mention them more than that, and it kind of gives them a presence within the story, even though they technically don't actually have a presence in the story, because Atrata is not working on behalf of the Dimir the entire story, unless she played a very, very long con game. Not with the murder, but everything afterwards, potentially. I doubt it.
The Dimir is always very tricky, isn't it? Because their guild is one of, they don't know necessarily what they're doing.
Even they don't know who's in on it and who isn't.
But yeah, she seems very much in her own agency.
Yeah, and then obviously Azoni is away and out of everything. You constantly get these mentions of spiders. In one of the spiders in the artwork, it has a Dimir symbol on the back of it. So I still, to this point, think it's deliberately putting all of this effort into misleading you. And for what it's worth, we'll talk about it when we get to the set kind of review, but there is there are secrets and clues within the cards themselves that are supposed to mislead you. So there's a lot of intrigue, even if you're getting artworks without the card context, that are supposed to be like a red herring or make you think this way. And again, right up until the very end, the only thing that spoiled it for me, and I really wish they just hadn't done this, is on the reveal video. Like, they only had to wait, like, one more day. On the reveal video, they could have left it just before they had the answer, but they actually gave the full, almost like a full synopsis of the story. And for most of it, wasn't an issue because you'd seen all of the 8 episodes up to that point already. I think they dropped on the same day the episode about Azoni and her figuring out where the pollen came from, because the pollen came not from Ravnica, which is a very big, like, oh, I wonder, and this is where people went, is it Oko? Is it Jace? And there was a lot of, is it, who is it? We haven't mentioned it, but Ezrin was a massive, like, because of the tuft of white fur. Maybe Ezrin's the one, because now we've seen him off of his mount.
Interesting. I did always think it was Voya.
But you know what I mean? But there was a big thing of, could it be Ezrin? Because he's so aloof. Pushy, but also aloof kind of thing. And now we know he can dismount and walk around, like, and they keep making a point of where, well, he can't go into that room because he's so big. So maybe he used other agents. Like, as soon as they said that it was from another plane or it wasn't from Ravnica, it kind of opened up all these ideas. But what they meant was it just hadn't been found on Ravnica yet.
Yeah,
it was a new substance
that
to
no
Ravnica.
one knew about that flower, but it was actually Trostani was just like, oh yeah, we just made a new
we
flower.
can make new flowers, we're the only one who can. And it's like, cool, that technically you're not wrong, but you know, it's when the setup gives you 58 options and you go for the 59th boring one.
Yeah.
You know, it's very...
That was a slight whiff, or like a misdirection.
But I think it's very hard to write a story like this and have it land for absolutely everyone, because there are some people who are going to come up with this amazing, fantastic idea that of course makes sense in their head, and then when you get the actual story and the delivery, you're like, oh okay, that's actually way worse than what I thought it was going to be. But I think it's justified, and the way that they do it is that it seemed really weird and sporadic of all of these different people getting killed, but the way that Oba justifies it, the idea of that this is what happened during the invasion, you didn't help, you did this, you exacerbated this, you took advantage. That seems like it's Ravnica reacting. Like, and she says that she speaks for Matt Selesnya, which I think for the most part she doesn't, because in the last story we have a massive long POV of Kaya while she's essentially, and I'm sure we'll get to her character study in just a moment. But even she then speaks to Matt Selesnya and goes, Ravnica, this isn't you.
Yeah.
You know, someone's trying to control you, and you're not going to let that happen, right? And it's almost like Ravnica goes, oh yeah, actually, yeah, you're right.
But I think you say talk about Oba then a little bit, like, yeah, they did a good job of her having sort of justifications in her own mind, but then sort of being like, yeah, but also she's definitely a murderer or whatever.
And she was definitely wrong.
She was, but there's this line here. The reason because I'm flicking through the kind of bits that I screenshotted. I didn't even remember screenshotting this one. I read all the stories today, and it's you refuse to see, so this is Oba speaking now when she's been revealed, and worst of all, you still congratulate yourselves on a battle well fought and a war well won. Even here, when you stand smugly in front of me and assume you've unravelled my plan, I've been killing for weeks.
That line.
I've witnessed countless examples of cruelty, cowardice, weakness, all in the need of nature's righteous judgment. The streets of Ravnica ran with the blood of the guilty long before I started hunting larger prey. You only noticed when I targeted people you cared about.
Yeah.
The ones considered important enough to grieve, and I'm not yet done.
That's kind of scary, isn't it? The fact that we only care now because it was a high-profile murder in a high-profile environment, which maybe she, like with all people who start, like, breaking the rules a little bit, once they get away with it for a little bit, they're like, oh, how much more overt can I be? How high can I go? And maybe this was like the end of her... I mean, she does say, oh, I'm not even finished yet, I'm going to carry on. But maybe like this was her getting to like... You start with the lower players, and you start with the lower sinners, and then eventually you get to the big guns, you know? It was, like, when I heard that, I was like, that's actually a really cool twist. You've been doing this for a long time. And the fact that she is tapped into the soul of the plane, and even though you've built this city across the entirety of it, there are roots and life underneath all of it that does permeate. Like, there was, it's kind of scary when you can just access any room at any time.
Anywhere there's grass.
And here's a random flower. Like, the main reason why they catch her is because he gets everyone together. Alquist gets everyone together to say, oh, I know who the murderer is, but I'm going to have to do some interviews first. And he goes, Kaya, can you come with me? And then obviously Oba goes, this is a perfect time. I'm going to kill Alquist using Kaya, and then everyone's going to blame Kaya because everyone's already kind of a bit suspicious of her anyway. And it was only because he already knew that was likely to happen that as soon as the fucking flowers started growing, he went, got you, chap it, cut it off, now I've got my evidence. I got you. You know, and even then, like, the big culmination at the end where Vitu-Ghazi and even its little town manor house kind of, like, castle-y thing, which apparently... I like the idea that it just reforms a different house every time.
I really like the idea. I didn't realise how many fucking planes had magical trees at the centre of them.
Uh-huh. True, actually, yeah.
Kaldheim, Kamigawa, Ravnica, New Phyrexia. That's 4.
I'm sure that Lorwyn had fucking Doran.
Oh, and well, just all of them. Colfinol.
Yeah, the Colfinol is what it meant. Sorry, yeah.
I'm sure there's another one I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's fantastic. But I mean, and what I liked was then she just started twisting everything, and then like she was basically taking on the entire plane at once, and basically did it. Like there wasn't a single person who could kind of fight against her apart from Kaya, because she can go, oh, I'm a ghost now, and now I'm not, and now I'm a ghost now, and now I'm not. You know, that's the only reason why.
Special planeswalker power that we didn't know people had before.
Don't. Okay. Again, I mean, so yeah, I think as an overarching story that was very ambitious, but also still well grounded. You're still learning a lot about Ravnica while still getting new story and this new Omen Path influence. It all delivered and it went well.
It was a great story.
Really well.
I really loved it. I loved going back to Ravnica and having these smaller stories again, or like having people run through the streets and just like little things here about like the fucking food and the drink again.
Yeah,
like,
talking about coffee again and things
talking
like
about the coffee. Like we open up on Taser looking over a party, and she's got a hot coffee laced with Bombat.
Yeah,
like, is that fucking alcoholic?
And she mentioned as like, well, I chose everything, and I will not miss the strudel.
There's
like,
also
that's so cute.
A flute of Casada. I don't know what Casada is. I'm guessing it's some sort of like if it's in a flute,
it feels like Cava or champagne. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
It's very nice. Again, we love this. Give us more details. Like, we will take the not the Planeswalkers guide, but an actual like holiday guide to Ravnica. We'll take that any day of the week. Give us some maps. Give us anything. Give us extra information, please. We'll take it. Right. So.
Yes.
Kaya.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about Kaya again.
And I think this is probably the most grounded. Like in Kaldheim, I think the problem with Kaldheim that we had, and I think most people have, is that because the plane was a new plane and had so much going on that we wanted to learn about what was going on behind it, we didn't really care about the fact that, like, okay, cool, there's a Phyrexian on there, that's kind of interesting. Vorinclex is bouncing around, that's kind of scary, cool, fantastic. And it's just, cool, random bounty hunter, fair enough. Tybalt's also there, don't really care. Like, stop getting in the way of us learning about this new plane. So it was very easy to kind of dismiss her, and her journey wasn't particularly large anyway. It was just kind of, I'm here on a job, and this shirtless guy's cool. Should we just go and do some buddy cop stuff together? Like,
she keeps mentioning Tyvar as
she
like
really does.
Well, as like a really close mate, and I'm just like,
well, we don't, again, timescale, we don't know how long she was on Kaldheim for. It was also the last good thing, quote unquote good thing, that was really happening before the whole Phyrexian arc.
With her, yeah.
So if you think about it, we don't know how many friends she had. I mean, she kind of ruined everything with Ravnica and the Orzhov anyway. That was always the bit of push and pull. She didn't want to be the guild master. She didn't really feel at home. And even in this story, there's a bunch of people, like even the fucking Hersman or whatever, like gives her like a snide little fucking well, fuck you, Planeswalker kind of thing, to her. Like even within her own guild, like there's people that are just like, we don't like you.
Well, she has to keep bribing everyone, like as the kind of, that's the way the Orzhov do it. It's like the tip, but everyone gets a tip for everything. So they don't expect it from Taser, even though Taser does it a couple of times. But then she's like has to tip people to get let into rooms. And it's like, I was fucking Guildmaster 2 years ago. Like, what the fuck,
I don't give a shit. So I guess for her, it's kind of like, it was like maybe because they also say throughout the story that she's like, I could just go anytime. And the fact she doesn't is good. Like she even said, like, I'm going to give you 3 days, Taser, to give me this big information and news that you're going to tell me. That I don't even. Do we ever find out what that specific news was?
I think the fact that when Taser was killed, she had the note in her.
It was probably what she wanted.
She was probably going to tell Kaya, "Look, I was in contact with the Phyrexians for a long time."
Maybe she had some information on potentially Jace or Vraska. Who knows?
Knowing that they were alive somewhere. Yeah.
So I think I think the reason why Tyvar is so important to her is it was like the last time of like freedom in a place that wasn't kind of trying to tie her down or reminding her of her failings or something. Because I feel she probably still feels that about Tovolar anyway, and it kind of gave her this grounding. Like in the last story, like I can't do it justice, so go and read it, because like half of the story is just POV of Kaya fighting to battle to get to Oba to try and trap her.
Yeah, it's a very good story.
And it's lots of little nuance, lots of internal monologue, a lot of like back and forth about how she feels about various things. Even Taser is there in she feels like Taser's presence there trying to help her along. And it turns out when she speaks to, but by the way, Taser's fine, she's a ghost.
The Orzhov don't die. They just come back,
she speaks. I think she speaks to Taser for the first time at Taser's funeral.
Yeah, Taser comes up
which
and
is
says, "What's even the name of this song?"
It's so cute. And she's like, she finally was like, after like a couple of lines, she was like, she finally gave herself like the chance to turn around and look and finally see Taser. And it's very cute. And she even gave a hug at the end, which is kind of nice. Like it gave.
She can ghost form and hug ghosts. Yeah,
which is kind of cute. Again, like I mean, maybe let's ship her and Argris.
I think it's in that little moment is interesting. I don't think maybe this is intended, but just as a viewer, because every time that Kaya has been used, because she got introduced in conspiracy as a way to kill King Brago.
Yeah. She's basically, okay, we've got some ghosts here. Is there anyone that can do this?
But I think they did that because obviously they worked so many years in advance. They used her as a plant as something to kill the Obsidian.
They always knew that she was going to come back. I think they even made her black-white to be like, she's going to be the link to the Orzhov anyway. That was a pebble thrown a long way back.
So having her be a character that whenever she ghost forms is because she's literally a ghost assassin, to then use her power to be friendly towards a ghost. It's like, oh, dude, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's very cute.
That's really cool.
Yeah, very cute.
She's always so badass. I always think of that artwork from her from Innistrad, the last time we went to Innistrad, where
through the window.
Yeah, needlessly bursting through the window. Because
you
just ghost form through it.
Yeah.
So
I will also say, again, like we might talk about this in Flavor Picks, but she also probably has the most diversity across all of her Planeswalker cards out of any Planeswalker. They all kind of do a similar aspect of thing of blinking in and out and some token stuff. Yeah. So it's all kind of like, it's almost like, we know she kind of does this thing, she's kind of into spirits, it's not just, cool, Chandra's fire, so we should just do some damage, and then maybe every now and again we do elementals. Like, that's essentially what you could do with Kai. It just turns out that blinking and tokens are actually much more interesting to play around with.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, black-white.
Yeah, so well, we don't know metaphysically what her abilities are exactly because they won't tell us, so why the hell would her Planeswalker cards not have a little bit of flexibility?
The ghost forming... They do, I think they put rules in it in as much as they will introduce a rule every time that she does it. So, for example, this one, it's the dead roots of the plane happen to have their own spirit essence.
Because Ravnica is all of Ravnica, so it as well, when she cuts the limb off of one of the trees, it can also form a spirit like the Orzhov do, because it's part of Ravnica and Orzhov is part of Ravnica.
So when she ghost forms, the physical roots can't touch her, but the ghost ones can. So they go, right, that's the rule for this, so in this fight, that's going to play a part. Has that ever been mentioned again? Will it be ever mentioned again? Probably not.
It's ghosts, mate. Who knows?
She can ghost through shit. But they do also acknowledge that whenever she talks about her necromancy, she acknowledges that her powers are necromantic, but they are not necromancy. So it's kind of like she's going, I don't fucking know. I'm just on Tovolar. People just fucking do this shit.
It's like tapping into something without realizing how other people would use it. Yeah. Right? But then she has this moment of where she could escape, right? And I think in the story it's supposed to insinuate the fact she's like, well, there's one thing I can do. There's one way I can escape. And then it's like, I can just planeswalk away, fuck off. And instead of doing that, she digs deep into her spark. That's not exactly the words. That's essentially what it said, is that she digs deep into her spark and almost pulls the ability to planeswalk away into her.
Yeah.
And then she kind of radiates like blind eternity energy.
Yeah.
Which is... That's new.
That's kind of new for Planeswalkers.
And you didn't really justify it beyond she's cool and radiant, which it might be almost a moment of like what happened with Rowan in the Squall in Strixhaven, and it taps into her full extent of power. I don't. Again, they don't really justify it, so we kind of have to headcanon it a little bit. But it does feel like her list of abilities just, again, because it's something cool, she can be intangible. It does kind of extend and extend.
Here's where my justification for it, because it hasn't ever been described in the way that it has done now. She even throws in a little bit of like, it looks like the cosmos from Kaldheim, that kind of, multi-coloured energy. I think that's just because they link her very closely to Kaldheim because of her time there. I think what the justification for it that Sean Maguire maybe took some artistic license with is that these mages that are planeswalkers, almost all of them are magical in some respect, rather than just being like, I'm a warrior.
There are very few that are just, punchy, apart from... Well, even Tyvar has abilities, right?
Yeah.
Gideon had his aura magic.
What do you call it? Lithia? No, what do you call it?
Oh, no, Hieromancy.
Yeah. But so I think you haven't found a planeswalker yet, is my point. That is just like a shit mage. They're always the best at that kind of magery.
True.
So I think what that is them saying, when you're a planeswalker, the Blind Eternities give you a little level boost. So that's probably what she's doing. She's going, oh, hang on a minute. I forgot. I'm a fucking planeswalker. Fuck you, tree.
Yeah, I've got more ability. As much as there isn't the same as it was before of like, you're a planeswalker, you can do everything. It's more, you're a heightened version of whatever you could do. And yeah, maybe there is this power cell kind of aspect of the Blind Eternities of if you can tap into it, it's gonna make you uber.
Let's talk about Alquist.
I was literally gonna say, what a fucking G!
What
a G!
A cool fucking character.
Quippiest, sexiest, fucking, his ability is so cool. Every time he does magic, everyone's like, Oh my god, you're the
so
tits.
Alquist Proft, he's a former Azorius. They don't really specify what he used to do.
They never say what his exact role was. No.
He rose through the ranks. He was there for a number of years because there's a moment where when he goes back to New Prav to go to Atratus' cell, he gets checked up by 3 levels of security checking his papers, and he quips about the idea that he remembers when he used to do that to other people. Mm-hmm. So he clearly has risen through the ranks of the Azorius. The Azorius have always been a little bit bummed that he left their ranks because he was a good resource. So he was probably
no guild wants to lose, as you say, on resource.
He was probably upper middle management, right? That's kind of where I'm placing him. Like he was probably a well-respected arrestor or something.
I put him at he's probably not area manager. He's probably GM, but he was probably one of the best GMs.
Yeah, they were like, "Do you want an area manager?" He's like, "No, I want to be boots on the ground."
Specify. Yeah.
So he's now part of the agency, and his power is that he has I think the Mind Palace is one version of it. So he has a really defined Mind Palace. Now, Mind Palaces are a real world thing that people claim they can do.
Sherlock Holmes is one of the more recent
I'm still not fully convinced it's really a thing. But
I had a girlfriend years ago who claimed to have one, and it was a country house. And every person that she ever met was a different book with different binding in her library.
Now, I could be talking out of turn. I don't think. Maybe.
No, but she was batshit crazy. There is maybe a little correlation there, but I do think there might be certain patterns that you can make your brain form.
Sure, yeah, there are definitely
to organize your. What's the other one that does this? Is there's a Stephen King book about aliens that come down and they have a mind palace thing, and it's the only way they manage to beat them is by keeping all their memories stored away in a secret room within their mind. Anyway,
the kind of real manifestation of his powers comes from the idea that he has an eidetic memory, which again is a real world thing, but that can manifest itself in sort of NCIS Miami fashion when they do holo scan the area.
Iron Man 3. When they do the big explodey thingy.
Iron Man 3.
You know exactly how. And then it's the big explodey thing, and then they recreate the crime scene.
He can magically recreate crime scenes, or indeed environments en masse, and make them somewhat physical if he's been there and he's remembered it, so that he can either revisit crime scenes when he's been away, or he, as he does in one of the stories when he goes to Kylox's laboratory, he can see what it used to be like. So it used to be pristine, and he's now seen the mess, so he can see what's moved and how, so he can figure out where people have gone, how they've broken in. Because if you see a smashed window, you go, okay, it's a smashed window, but it's right, how was that window before, so I can see the trajectory of the grass,
was it smashed in, smashed outside,
out. So he can, and this makes him obviously an incredible detective. Other agency members have machines that recreate this,
but his is perfect replication rather than a simulation.
Yeah, he's also super quippy. He's
the quippiest motherfucker. One thing I wish I'd done is gone through the story and just picked out certain lines from him. But there's not a single person in this story, even when he's on the back foot or in the minor role, there isn't a single person who manages to best him in terms of a back and forth.
There's his line. Atrata kept drumming, rolling her eyes at the same time. Oh, and I suppose you like having people who are smarter than you around whilst you're trying to work. I wouldn't know, said Proft. As the floor dropped, this time all the way, he stepped forward, offering Atrata a hand up. It's never happened. Yeah. Shall we descend? But the thing is, though,
so matter of fact about it.
But the thing is, the reason he gets away with it, and this is a really nice character moment, because it would be so easy to be he's super smart, but also he's a dick. And it's no, because when he says something it's when they find Zagana with all the coats on top of her, and it's Kaya and Proft, and Proft has spotted that all the coats have some, either with the way that they're folded or by their insignias, have all the guilds represented. Yeah. And then he says something
apart from the Golgari or something. One of them was missing.
And he says, and Kaya says, well, the Golgari and the Dimir weren't at the party. And he says, well, you mean to tell me you haven't spotted the only Dimir agent here? He's talking about Atrata. But when Kaya looks at him, they deliberately put in the line, he looked at her with a sense of earnestness, not smug.
Yeah.
And it's he's not trying to be a dick. He's just trying to be look at this fun puzzle that I've solved.
He speaks matter-of-factly, not with self-indulgence.
Yeah, there are moments where when he's doing the Poirot-esque roundup at the end, the kind of Miss Marple, here's the killer, where he says something would you deny a detective the opportunity to be smug? But it's because he is going to tell them. He's not going to keep it to himself. He's just
he wants to show it off.
Yeah,
it's impossible not to.
He's willing to break Atrata out of prison, even though that he's he could get done for it. He's sure that he won't, but obviously it's still risky. But he wants the mystery to be solved. He doesn't judge assassins for being assassins. He's just look, you do what you do as long as you're not trying to kill me unlawfully. And she's no. He's cool, you're on my team then. He's so fucking good.
No,
he's also handsome as shit.
And can you stop?
But also the design. So like this is where the follow on from Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance had this real film noir feel, where because of the underlying unease of Bolas's plans, they presented that in those sets as being like a film noir thing. The secrets, there's something not right. The Dimir are being really shifty. The Golgari are also kind of in on it, and all the planes, all the guilds are doing things that aren't usual, or kind of they're all very insular because Bolas is manipulating people, and all the Dimir cards specifically had this kind of. Some of them look like they were from the Matrix, but like
imagine that one with the rain where he's throwing the thing. Yeah,
exactly. But there was all like trench coats and like kind of big sort of collars. And the Azorius, I think the Azorius and the Dimir, obviously being sort of tied color wise, are sort of two sides of the same coin. Obviously, this whole set feels very Esper.
Yeah.
And the fact that Atrata and Alquist are sort of working together as a former Azorius agent. But this whole Ravnica is now the film noir set, right? So having this kind of evolution of style, the agency is all, and I know you're not a big fan, we can talk about it big in the cards, but the way they're presenting them is all like, trilbies and raincoats and, all this kind of shit, typewriters and all like cameras and all this kind of crap. He looks like a defined character and not just random Azorius agent number 3.
Yeah. There was a lot of talk about whether or not he was just a Jace illusion. Because or an agent of Azor, because he has an ability that's very similar to Sphinx's Revelation.
Yes,
and they were like, maybe he's being again, maybe because of the Omen Pass, maybe Azor is now influencing Alquist or someone to try and break the Guild Pact so he can come in and write a new one and make things stricter again. Again, like he was very cool. I like his voice a lot. The only thing I think is. Obviously, now Omen Pass are a thing. You could probably go to other planes and stuff. I feel like he's one note enough now, and his one note is fantastic enough that it's really interesting. I'd like to see him further. I'd like to see him interacting, because he's now taken on Atrata as not apprentice, his partner or his accomplice or whatever. Yeah. I'd like to see that go ahead and see something in the future.
Yeah, I don't know whether how would a detective work on like a Amonkhet?
Once we're out of this detective set. Does a lot of these a lot of this has kind of come from not from nowhere, but the agency is like obviously fabricated and made for this set specifically. Does this agency now dissipate because we're not focusing on a murder mystery set?
Well, it's interesting. I think along with a lot of the card art, because I mean this I think the fact that we've spoken about the cards so much leads this set to actually feel very whole and very real. Even for the things you like or don't like, it is all very integrated. And the fact when I kept looking at these cards, and indeed when I was reading the story, when they go to the agency, and it does feel very sort of like 1920s, a lot like I haven't actually watched the second season of Loki, but I have watched the first one. So kind of the 1920s through 30s TMA style,
it has that very
clunky
much
typewriter kind of thing.
It feels oldie worldy, but also super futuristic.
But what it felt like to me was New Capenna. It felt like now the comparisons between New Capenna and Ravnica are obviously very obvious. Very obvious. We spoke about them at the time when Capenna came out. It's like, so it's Ravnica 2.0. But obviously the shtick of New Capenna is that there is no law.
There was no law. Yeah, well, I don't think you could... And Matt Marrow's recently said about this as well. He's like, well, obviously there was real-world issues happening at the time, which meant we couldn't really do a organised crime versus police force. But on Ravnica, they'd already been doing it for years.
And the inherent problems with the structures, of all the structures, not just like, hey, crime's cool and cops are bad.
Yeah.
It was like, no, everyone has their place, and also some of it's shitty.
The murder was bad, even though somehow murder is kind of okay on Ravnica in certain ways because the law's written that way. It felt like there needed to be a reaction against it, and because the guilds are so stuck in what they're doing, it had to be someone who was guildless to do it. And I don't think, and because this is only a pocket of Ravnica in the story of Ravnica,
again, it's the fucking 10th district.
You couldn't lift it back into New Capenna. You couldn't create, because it would make it would be a duality, and you couldn't accurately represent the other side without straying too much into New One. Like even if there are aspects and there are cards and stuff within the set that are very nudge nudge, this is real world kind of word, like worlds and tropes coming in, because it's Ravnica and it's still quite removed from our actual real world. I think the way they were able to do it is because they removed it from the real world influence of New York being New Capenna, feeling of a certain era, and having certain biases. You don't have those on Ravnica because Ravnica is an entirely fantastical place.
Also, they've set up the precedent with, I mean, they did it with Dominaria initially, but I guess more dramatically they did it with Kamigawa. Planes can evolve.
Yeah.
technology
things should change,
and things
right?
should change. And also now with the Omen Paths and the full recognition, not just War of the Spark recognition.
No, but actual anyone from anywhere can
be here. It's a multiverse.
Yeah.
The planes are going to start blending. I mean, how long before they start doing something where it's like we go back to, I don't know, fucking Fiora, and there's loads of like Kaladesh influence.
Yeah, or Therosia. Like, who's to say that you can't have a constellation card next to a Metalcraft card?
They pop off to they go back to New Capenna, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the Therosian quarter. Like we had a bunch of like refugees coming through from Theros, and now they're just like setting up because it's a fucking set about immigration and the blending of community. You know?
I think my biggest regret. Now I think we've kind of covered most of what we needed to specify from the story. My concern now with the Omen Path arc is that it's coming to a fairly quick close already, and I don't feel like we've explored it enough yet. I would love to find, I guess Ravnica was that plane, of where I'd like to find a plane that feels like it's in the centre. Like, I'd like to go back to Dominaria with all the Omen Paths, because it's the centre of the multiverse, and I'd like to feel like it is the centre of all of these different crossovers. There's trade and commerce, there's active travelling between, that kind of thing. I feel like the problem with the Omen Path arc is we're going to tease it, and we're going to get into it a little bit, and I don't want them to fix it, but I think what we'll probably come to is we'll probably come to a conclusion as to why it's happened, and then how to stop that from happening. There might be a reason why it's bad.
Oh, I don't know if they will.
What do you think, that the Omen Path arc will end, and then the Omen Path will still be a thing? It just won't be the focus.
Well, so I think Kellen. So it's Kellen's journey. That's obviously what they're focusing on. He's already picked up,
but not as the primary, which is perfect.
Yeah, which is great. And actually, I was worried when he popped up in Ixalan that I was going to go, oh, fucking hell. But actually, they
really was
doing
just
it right.
He was just a side character with a really
and
cool
he's a fine character. He's not totally annoying. He's just doing his own thing.
Yeah, somehow this bright fucking everything's great. No one seems to dislike that. It's almost like positivity is positive.
Well, as someone who doesn't like, say, for example, kids in films, and doesn't like the Spielbergian, like I'm in a school and I'm being bullied. Let's have my sort of group of misfits trope. That runs me cold.
Yeah, fair.
I actually, for whatever reason, Kellen is fine. A little bit like how Teo, I was like, no, Teo's fine.
Fish out of water is fine if the fish can do something interesting.
And he's like, he has agency.
Yeah, exactly.
He's actually kind of good.
And he also has a very strong...
He's got a goal.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously he's going to follow through to finding Oko. Or, do you reckon when we get to Thunder Junction, Kellen will find Oko? Or is that just a way to bring Oko back in?
I think it would be really stupid if they started an arc where they have the son of Oko going through various planes to end up on the plane that his dad is and not make that a thing of the set.
Fair point.
What I think they'll have to do is what it was annoying is what I think what would be nice is if they have the entire set of Thunder Junction play on its own, and only right at the end of the story do we get Oko and Kellen meeting, and that then triggers something else to happen.
They go into Bloomburrow.
So the entire story isn't actually about Kellen finding Oko. He just happens to find Oko at the end of it, and the main story is all about these villains and all the shit they're doing.
I like that.
That's what I think should happen, whether it does or not.
Who's the vampire that he's with?
Amalia.
So Amalia is
mentioned. She's
mentioned.
Here. She's in the rubble belt or something.
Looking at an ancient ruin.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is about this arc. The reason I think they might close the story of it, but just keep it open, is because it's Kellen's story.
Are they closing it or keeping it open?
Shut up. Is that they have him find Oko, but then they might explain the Omen Paths being like, oh, well, the multiverse is shattered. But if they heal it, they can't take away Planeswalkers and heal the Omen Paths.
Yeah, well, we still don't know yet exactly what the cause of the spark rupturing happening is, and if they did fix that and give all the Planeswalkers their sparks back, I don't think you can un-Phyrexian invasion the multiverse. And I think that's the whole point, whereas I think a lot of the Omen Paths are the wounds left behind by Worldbreaker, and I don't think you can undo that. And even if you can, if there are certain ones that are more... So what would be nice is if you have like almost an analysis of you have a plane that has some really strong, stable Omen Paths, and you have ones that are like more erratic. I mean, there's even a random card in the set, I think it's like Rift Scale Helion or something, and it's like a Helion from some random other fucking plane busting through into Ravnica.
Yeah.
And those kinds of hints are good. Because as we've said, your first planeswalk and you happen to planeswalk into the Abyss, or you happen to planeswalk into the middle of Wrath. This is genuinely a thing that is happening now, because you have no idea where you're going. We still haven't cut back up with Chandra and Nisa after they go off on their first Omen Path thing that everyone thought was, oh, we're now going to follow them, are we? It's like, no.
Thank God.
Leave them alone, because you're just going to ruin it anyway.
And also, we've seen those characters 1,000 times now.
I'd like to come back to it, and they're like 10 years older and they've been together for ages, and I don't know.
They're just running like a patisserie or something.
They live in the grove of the Burnwillows.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, right? And they're just in their little... Oh, that's cute. So yeah, I mean, it's one of... I think it would be a massive... I guess maybe I'm misconstruing the words Omen Path arc, and if they do happen to get to the end of it, it might not be that they fix it or they break it or they change it. It might just be that it's not the focus anymore. And even then, it doesn't feel like for these last few sets, the Omen Paths have been the focus. It's just they've been given opportunity. Like Quintorius being on Ixalan. We'd never find out about the Coin Empire.
They didn't mention the Coin Empire in this. Ooh.
Good. They don't need to. Because the reason I know you really want to get into the Fomori, and I
just want to see her go giant.
Yeah, it's like the Kasmina thing. I really want to know what she's doing. And we'll touch on Kasmina in a minute. I can see exactly what you're looking at. Fuck, I forgot. I've lost my train of thought now.
Omen Path.
I think it would be a massive. I think the reason why it is good is because, again, Quintorius couldn't have been on Ixalan without them, wouldn't have had the perspective he had on them, and wouldn't have found the Coin Emperor starting this whole other arc and this whole other thing without the Omen Pass.
Yeah.
Because Planeswalkers aren't invested in their own agendas per se. Because back then, they were, even if they were, you wouldn't focus on them because it's kind of boring. What we were focusing on is how these Planeswalkers affect other planes or how they can fix it again. They felt like superheroes rather than tourists.
Yeah.
Now we've got a bunch of tourists that have way more individual agency and have way more interactivity than this like Ubermensch who comes down, saves the fucking world from this thing and then bounces. It's less Doctor Who. It's less Doctor Who finale and more Doctor Who filler episode.
Sure.
And I hate it to say it, but that's kind of how I feel like how it works. And I kind of rather have the filler episodes because, again, it's just generic world building rather than trying to deliver these big fuck-off story points that might not deliver and might not work. Like, we wouldn't have got a story like this with the Planeswalkers being around as much.
Because there'd be loads of Planeswalkers.
Because even then, like, every time we focused on whether or not Kaya could leave or not, my eyes started to glaze. I'm like, I don't care that she could leave at any point. I don't want her to leave. That's not interesting
also,
to the story. That's not compelling.
Kaya, obviously, being the one with the love agency, the only other Planeswalker in this story was Ral, who we didn't talk a lot about. Because they don't really...
Yeah, we get like a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, and it's not his story.
No.
So that's fine.
And even then, it's like a little cutesy bit about him and Tomek, and she's like, oh, he'd only been annoyed about you trying to be reckless. And you would have, had you not been able to be.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
but
cool.
no, like, Trostani took him out quickly, and that's kind of where he stayed. Yeah, fine.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, grass versus electric type is kind of a number, isn't it?
It's true, though. Isn't grass... No. Is electric not effective against grass? I thought grass was not effective against electricity.
I think they just affect each other normally, but...
I'm pretty sure they don't. I'm pretty sure grass isn't.
Wow. Leave us in the comments which one of us is right.
What comments? Smash that subscribe button.
On Twitter.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I forget we put it on X.
There's one more mystery.
There is one more mystery.
There's one more mystery.
And this was a big one because, again, this came into the point of a lot of people... Because there was 2 or 3 mentions, I think literally 2 or 3 mentions of Vraska throughout the entire story. And there were people wondering are you just mentioning it to give it the long payoff? Mm-hmm. And there wasn't really implicit specific mention of Jace. It was more mention of Vraska. However...
So, when Proft and Atrata are down in the Undercity visiting Azoni, Proft sees at the corner of his eye when they're having the meeting with Azoni a hooded figure. Now, in a story where there's lots of informants and spies and shit, obviously him being a detective, he was like, right, that's something.
I'm after this bitch, let's go.
So Proft starts running off. An interesting character thing that we found out about Proft is that Atrata notices that when they're in the Undercity, Atrata is slipping and sliding all over the place because she's not used to being in mossy...
He's sure-footed.
Proft, for whatever reason, seems to be holding his own in the Undercity. Never mentioned again.
So there's a theory about this that because he was an Azorius, and it's mentioned in a paragraph talking about that he liked to break the rules a lot, that he probably, whenever he was investigating anything, went, but I'll just investigate a little bit further.
We'll keep going into the Undercity.
Why
is informants?
How is more information bad?
He knows Azoni.
Yeah.
So... Proft obviously goes off with a lot of confidence, and then out of nowhere, he seemingly gets knocked out. He's following this hooded figure,
clubbed in the back of the head,
and he fucking boom, and he hits the deck.
Yeah.
And he wakes up in his mind palace, in his internal mind palace,
which is bizarre.
So it's his library, a little bit like Jace's.
It's very much Jace's archive. Yeah, it's very much like that.
And in his mind palace, he's like, "Okay, I'm here. This is weird because I didn't set this off, and I got knocked out." He notices the hooded figure in a blue light, riffling through the manifestations of his information.
His mind reports.
We're picking up literal files, because obviously that's how Proft envisages it, like a detective's office. And the line is, he confronts this hooded figure, and the hooded figure replies, "Sadly, my friend, I'm not the one you're looking for," because Proft says, "Are you this killer?" said the figure, pulling out a folder out of one of the drawers and flipping it open. I'm merely passing through Ravnica. Ravnica is a waypoint, not a destination. But your contributions will be remembered, and I'll see you're rewarded in some way when the time comes. He tucked the folder into his cloak, turning as if to go. And there's artwork that's clearly going to be on a card.
It's called...
Magali Villeneuve artwork as well, by the way.
Yeah, it's called Intrude on the Mind, or something similar.
Yes, now in the artwork, it is interesting that there's a couple of thopters behind this figure.
This is where people are like, is it Dovin
Well, no, the hands are human hands.
I mean, I think we have to accept that some parts of that book were canon. I think that Dovin is dead.
Yes, and Dovin had 6 fingers because he was Kaladesh.
Precisely. And
anyway,
also, he wasn't a mind mage either.
So this hooded figure only appears in this one passage of the story. There's one little mini chase and then in the Mind Palace. He blips out. He's
we assume but yeah.
Well, he's male coded in the artwork anyway.
Yeah.
There's a line about the fact that Proft doesn't like the fact this person's taken his intellectual property.
Yeah, like imagine if someone stole a memory,
but like,
I didn't even steal it. Like Xeroxes it. I'm just going to copy these memories. I'm just going to take them off.
Calling it intellect because he stole it from his intellect.
Yeah, that's so
as opposed
funny.
to it being like property that's abstract.
It's
very
brilliant.
It's a very good line,
isn't it?
So. Who the fuck is this person?
Yeah, also, who else would likely have knowledge and experience of the Golgari part of Ravnica, apart from
is the
who
theory
was banging the Golgari guild leader?
You think this is Jace?
So, no, not specific. Like, so the way I look at it is, I think that I think that magic and a card, I don't think they can help themselves. When the card is called Intrude on the Mind, you think it's the hooded figure intruding on Proft's mind. Whereas I think it's Proft intruding on the mind mage looking into his...
But why would Proft get knocked out? He sees...
I don't think he's knocked out. I think the entire thing...
When he wakes up, Atrata goes, who were you running after?
Yeah, I think the entire thing is a mind manipulation, or the entire thing is an illusion. And we know there's one mage who's very good at both external illusion and internal illusion. You have to be good at both. Because he either needs to get into the mind of Proft and show him the image of the person to chase after, or create an illusion in front of them that only he can see and Atrata can't see, to then chase and then get into their mind when they're closer and can do a touchy thingy.
What does Proft know that Jace needs to know?
Well...
What is he... Like, Jace doesn't... Look, the line that I'm not sure that sounds like Jace.
It's the waypoint thing.
The waypoint, so Ravnica is Jace's second home, much like it is Kai's second home.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that he'll reward Proft when the time comes.
Yeah.
That's not a very Jace thing to say.
The way I look at it is Jace isn't Jace right now, right? His mind has been addled to the point of where what I can assume, because eventually we're going to have to come back to Jace at some point.
Yes, sure.
And I think we're probably going to find that his mind mage powers, because it's not to be understated that he is one of the most powerful mind mages in the multiverse.
Yes.
That's a very, very, very strong title to hold. The fact that I think he's likely to be able to hold on to an aspect of him, but then be maybe changed by the Phyrexianization, has probably cut off some of his, individuality or something. Maybe it's changed his personality a little bit. Who knows? Or is he just playing up? But I do agree, everything that he says doesn't sound.
It sounds like someone
Jacey
grander. It sounds like someone older than Jace.
And if the question you asked is, what would Jace want from this information? What information could they want? Like, extrapolate that question and put it on anyone. What could anyone want from Proft? What does Proft know that this person in general could possibly need that's so important?
Proft has the eidetic memory, I suppose.
To come through Ravnica to pick up this information off of a random detective. What is it that Proft knows that he doesn't even... Because in the story, because we're seeing his point of view, surely he would have said, oh, it's got to be that information that he's taking.
He forgets.
Yeah.
The point is he took the memory.
But he doesn't even go not that folder's about this.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you might be, from a writing point of view, artistically being elusive about it, but I would have thought that Proft would have been like, why would he pick up this folder about this date? Or why would he pick up the folder about this place or this time?
But it is intriguing. So now we have...
It's another Coin Empire.
Coin Empire. We've got mystery hooded figure. Whenever there's a blue coded hood, the Ozlith. Whenever there's a blue coded hooded figure, I always think it's Kasmina.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So we've got two very clear ones, right?
So
it's Jace
it could
and
be that the
Kasmina.
artwork. Maybe I'm interpreting the artwork very literally, and it is just meant to be a figure.
I think voicing wise, it sounds much visually from what we've seen. And again, when you read a story, you make your own mind up anyway. Blue and hooded, you automatically go to Jace. Even in the picture, in the image, in the card, it looks a bit like Jace. It looks like his original Alessi Briscoe.
Jace Beleren. Yeah,
but Kasmina seems like way more the kind of person that would speak with that tone.
Yes.
And also, we don't know if Kasmina has lost her spark or not. We know fucking nothing about her, even in a fucking set where she was like one of the main people. Well, even one of the main people. In a set where she could have been one of the main people, she wasn't. So, if Wizards are playing this super, super, super long game, I don't mind it, but for fuck's sake, please, just give us a little bit of something.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Because how many long
sets
arcs?
into a new arc.
But they keep telling us they're not going to do these long sweeping stories, and yet they keep dropping random long sweeping stories. The Chain Veil! The fucking Unarchy! We still don't know about them or what they're doing.
I tell you why, because Wizards goes, we're not going to do this kind of shit.
Yeah.
And then they hire in good writers.
And the writers go, well,
I fucking want to do that.
Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps up our grand speech about everything. I do want to bring one little point right back to Shonen did a bunch of like DVD extra articles about these, and after every single read them because they're great. And it was great to read them one by one because, full disclosure, Andy read them all in one day. I read it as I went along, one by one. I did get the release video, so I did have episodes 9 and 10 kind of spoiled for me. I knew what was going to happen before it happened. But after every episode, Shonen, I can't remember on what, I think it's like maybe Commander's Herald, I can't remember what website it was on, but they did a DVD extras of where they went through the entire script essentially, and then had little inserts as they talk about what they were doing with it, why they were doing it, what does this signify, like, oh, this was interesting to talk about. And one of the main things that they mentioned was that getting to quiz Wizards about the biology of an Archon and watch them squirm.
Oh, Ezrin, yes.
As they squirm, as they try and figure out, because they're like, obviously Archons and we've spoken about this before. Can you imagine like an Archon Hydra, and we're like, but what is it? What even is an Archon? So, we actually finally got some specificity about.
Well, Archons are cross magic, and they are from many different planes. In fact, it doesn't necessarily matter what the real world mythology the plane's pulling from. Archon is a little bit like dragon. They kind of sort of insert into lots of places. Archons are depicted as a hooded rider on some sort of mount, be it sort of a griffin,
bestial in
or
some fashion,
was a manticore, usually some sort of
There's
lion.
There's a lion we've
cat
had before.
coded.
Krond is a lion, for example.
Yeah. So it's like
Blazing Archon is a lion as well.
Yeah, exactly. Now Ezrin, the head of the agency, is a Archon. We have had Archons from Ravnica before, and they are usually riding winged cat beasts. So for all intents and purposes, manticores, although manticores on Amonkhet, for example, don't have the wings, that's a different issue. So all throughout this story, yeah, you're right. Ezrin is depicted as being the rider on the beast. Yeah. Whenever they're being described as such, they are interchangeably described as the full package versus rider and beast. And whenever all the other characters are talking about Ezrin, they're talking about it as the full thing. Except for when they go into his office.
There's like a little fucking pen at the back.
There's a pen at the back.
Little stables.
We don't see what that's used for the first time, but then the second time Kaya goes in there, Ezrin, the rider,
is dismounted
and sat at the desk.
Yeah,
and the mount is in the back.
Yeah, but we never hear it. We never hear Ezrin referring to the mount as a separate entity. I mean, my big question, it always comes down to this: is do Archons bang? Like, how does an Archon get created?
I've always thought they were a bit more like avatars.
The way I look at it is it similar to demons and angels, where they're a manifestation of the plane?
Because Archons are no joke. On the cards, they're usually made as some sort of like angel-level powerful creature.
They are super strong, yeah. They usually, I mean, not only from a physical prowess point of view, if you got this, I mean, even I think him by himself, like, I say him by himself, even the rider by itself is a large person. You're talking maybe 8, 9, potentially 10 feet tall. And obviously the mount is like this grandiose beast that probably has, physical prowess as well. Yeah. So even from a I want to go and attack them kind of point of view, not going to happen. And obviously Ezrin wasn't there for Oba in the Vitu-Ghazi. One, I don't think they'd fit through the door. And two, it would create one of those, you don't sometimes put two characters in a room at the same time because you can't write a way for it to be satisfying them interacting. And I think they deliberately tried to move away from it because I feel like this is as close as we're going to get for a long time of trying to justify Archon lore.
Physiology.
And I feel like Shonen saw this opportunity and went, I am going to put him in the story as much as possible to give as much information as possible.
And all the questions that I had and that they couldn't answer, I'm going to write it in
there.
Yeah,
exactly. Which is fantastic. This is exactly what I want from Magic Story, is that take the things I don't know yet and give me things to know about.
But they gave themselves a backdoor out, because what they did was that they had Kaya as Shonen's point of view, having this thought all the way through, like, well, is it the rider? Is it the person?
Yeah.
And then they dropped in a little thing of going, Archons on Ravnica, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, obviously, Wizards has set a precedent where they might have creature types across planes, but they're all slightly different.
Yeah.
Centaurs are slightly different. Gorgons are slightly different.
But the thing is, Archons are so, like, nebulous in, like, their physiology and everything that it's kind of almost like a cop-out to go, like, but they might be different on every plane. It's like, true, but each one's going to be equally fuckery from every plane, so we still don't have an event. We're just basically, we're one step closer to understanding Archons. I can't ask for anything more.
Well, we're one step closer by saying at least Ravnican Archons can have the rider portion dismount from the mount portion.
Yeah. They are technically separate entities.
But they're still considered the same being.
Yeah. Again, do they bang? How are they born? Like, was there a child Archon with a little kitty cat with a fucking baby on top? Like, what? How? The what?
Yeah.
How and the what? And
why does he have a job? He's an Archon.
He's exactly.
Does he need money to sustain?
Why does he wear a hat, Andy? Why doesn't the Mount also wear a hat, Andy?
That'd be a big hat. Probably.
It would be a great hat.
Expensive.
Imagine being a hatter at this time in Ravnica, because you are making bank. Every single person is coming to you going, I know you were sold out of fedoras yesterday, but if you made any more, because I need a fedora, my job requires it. Good.
This was so cool.
It was kind of the perfect slice of life, whilst also being a little bit absurdist, whilst also still incorporating everything from outside of Ravnica, while still feeling like a very true to its core Ravnican story.
Yeah.
It was, I can't fault it.
I'm hyped. I'm really hyped for this new era of Magic. I think it's all proven very good.
I mean, I'm excited to see the epilogue story. Again, it came from the AR. It's going to come from the ARGs, like the interactive puzzles and stuff. I'll be interested to see what is written, and then where we're going to launch off from. We might talk about it a little bit, because I think it'll probably drop a lot of hints as to what actually happens with a few of the characters. Yeah. It did feel very much like the story ended quite abruptly, but again, we didn't get the epilogue moving into the next set, which we normally get. So,
and I think we're going to be talking a lot about this stuff in our set review, because I think it's all very closely linked.
Yeah, these two. Yeah, the cards. This is one of those sets of where it's instead of like say Eldraine, Wilds of Eldraine, of where the story was great and the set was great, but they did feel like there wasn't necessarily complete cohesion. This is the story's great, the set's great, and there is exceptional cohesion.
Yeah.
Like the two of them do very much weave together.
All right. Well, I'm desperate for the toilet.
Yeah,
so
same, actually.
I'm not going to wrap up. Thank you very much for listening.
Really, we're not going to give like our Twitters, our emails,
sure.
The actual you can wrap up without wrapping up.
You can find my personal Twitter at AndyManFace. Nathan's yours is
at the Fox in the Moon.
Our podcast Twitter is at MTFlavouring. Emails go to mtflavouring@gmail.com. We might be going to MagicCon Amsterdam.
I want to lock it in. I want it to happen. I didn't do one last year.
No, you missed out on both.
I missed on last year, so it'd be nice to do one this year.
We aren't going as creators because I missed the window to submit ourselves creator badges.
We could do that.
It's a narrow window.
Okay.
Oh, we can do it.
Oh, well, we Archons. We can't fit.
Yeah.
Wait, who's the Mount and who's the rider?
We both need to pee. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Magic the Flavouring.
Oh, we'll see you soon, fellow Archons.
Alright, you go first.